I'm Rachel,
And I'm Amanda.
and this is episode 49 of Books and Bingos. This week we're discussing new April book releases. So, Amanda, do you have any big plans for April?
Yes, I think when this episode drops, I will be at the Texas Librarian Association conference in Dallas. So lots of authors and events and connecting with our librarian people. What about you?
That'll be fun. Well, we've got a lot of testing going on in April at school, but then we do have spring break, so that's always something fun to look forward to.
Absolutely. It's
We
nice
got
to have that.
we got a lot of great new releases coming out in April too. So
Yeah,
it was hard to narrow down
for
what
sure.
to recommend today. So why don't you go ahead and start us off with your first April release?
Okay, so I chose Rebellion 1776 by Laurie Halse Anderson. This is reminiscent of old school Laurie. If you've read Fever 1793, I think we might have to fact check that. I can't remember the year on that one, but our eighth graders read that at my school. And so this is just like another one of those historical fiction books that is incredibly timely because it follows a pandemic, which a lot of us can relate to having just lived through one. So it is spring 1776, and Elsbeth Culpepper wakes to the sound of the siege of Boston. It turns her whole city into a war zone, and her father, which is her only living relative after smallpox took her mother and her siblings, he goes missing, and it leaves Elsbeth all alone. She doesn't want to end up in an orphanage, and she is very tall, so she can pass for like 16 years old, which makes employment easier to obtain. She gets a job as a nanny and a maid caring for young children just as a pandemic sweeps through the city of Boston, barring anyone from leaving. Elsbeth has had smallpox and is now immune, so she takes on the task of caring for those who contract this deadly disease. But in the midst of it all, she continues to search for her father in the hopes of being reunited with him. So this one has actually been on my radar for a while. And the American Librarian Association conference in 2023, we went to a Simon and Schuster event where we got to talk with Laurie and get the first few chapters of this, thinking it was going to release soon. But then it got kind of pushed back even more. And last year at North Texas Teen Book Festival, I got to moderate a panel with her and told her that I was just dying for this book, and it was definitely worth the wait. I think that this is a great one to use for novel studies. If you wanted to do cross-curricular work with your social studies or history department, this would be great. It also is great to compare current events to where our country was in 1776. And then, yeah, you could also potentially pair it with Fever 1793. I was right. This novel releases April 1st. So by the time this episode is out, this book will be out in the world. Content warnings would be death, illness, pandemic, violence, child death, death of a parent, parental abandonment, emesis, and war as a theme. Bingo scores would be 2025 release, historical fiction. I think it'd be great as a book club pick or a book you borrow from the library. And then the challenge for the year, it would fall under book club if you end up going that way, or a book by your favorite author's favorite author. Because I've actually talked with lots of authors before, and several have mentioned Anderson being their favorite. So if you wanted to pick up one of those, feel free. And just a great one to read with all of the political things we're going through right now and how it mirrors over 200 years ago.
Nice. Well, I also have an April 1st pick. Mine is kind of in a different vein, though. This is a picture book for all ages. It's called Cute Animals That Could Kill You Dead by Brooke Hartman and illustrated by Maria Garcia. Some of the ones mentioned in the book are the grasshopper mouse, whose nickname is the werewolf mouse because it howls before it has a meal. There's the slow loris that creates a poison that can make your skin rot like a zombie. The bumblebee bat, which is only as big as your thumb, the tiniest mammal in the world, but can eat up to 4,000 bugs an hour. A jumping spider that can jump 50 times its body length, and one was actually taught to jump on command, all the way through to honey badgers, the most fearless animal we have, that are venom resistant and can drop stink bombs to ward off predators. So every animal they mention is really kind of cute looking. Most of them are very small, but they all have pretty intense abilities to help them survive in nature. And I thought this was very well done, very informative, would be great for our younger readers who are interested in nonfiction and interested in animals. But it also would be great read aloud or to use for a research project. This is one that I think is going to be very popular in our elementary libraries. And like I mentioned, it's available on April 1st. And this would work for Bingo Square's 2025 release, nonfiction and female author.
Oh my gosh, I got this as a physical copy a few weeks ago and thought it was just adorable. I ended up giving it to one of our feeder elementary school librarians, and she was like obsessed with it. And so I think, yeah, it's going to be a great one for all the children, but definitely our upper elementary kids.
For sure.
My second choice is the one I actually cannot be more excited about. Like, literally, I need this book to be out in the world immediately. It is Death in the Jungle, Murder, Betrayal, and the Lost Dream of Jonestown by Candace Fleming, who we have featured several times on the podcast. It honestly, like, I could not put it down. It's a YA nonfiction book that follows Jim Jones. And this was before my time in life, and I never really heard about it. Like, I guess I heard Jonestown murders and don't drink the Kool-Aid. Like, I heard all that stuff, but like, I didn't really know all the history behind it. I was like enthralled with this book. So it follows Jim Jones, who was a kid during the Depression. It was this, as well as his parental abandonment, that helped shape who he ends up becoming. He's allowed to kind of run wild around his town and is ultimately taken to the church where he found his calling as a preacher. Over the years, Jones gets married. He becomes a popular preacher with multiple temples in the United States and ends up settling a socialist cult in the jungles of Guyana, South America. It's there that he creates a compound called Jonestown. After several months of settling there, Jones is able to indoctrinate and murder more than 900 people and call it revolutionary suicide. How is he able to achieve this? So, I guess interested in cults because this was just insane to me that people believed the things that he said and gave up all of their money, all of their like belongings, relationships with their family. Like they would do anything for this man. And it's just such an interesting sociological like study. Like I wish I could just study the like all the research and stuff around cults and why people end up joining something like this. It was probably the most engrossing nonfiction book that wasn't like a biography or a memoir that I've ever read. I think Fleming could teach a master class in writing nonfiction that feels like fiction. And cults have always just been like an interesting topic for me. So you put those two together, and I was just like I remember reading it on a plane and I was just like, I didn't want the plane to be over. Like, I didn't want to get to my destination because I was so into this book. And the fact that these events like really even took place feels unreal to me. And it just blows my mind that all of this actually happened. And I am so excited to get this one out in the world. It releases April 29th. Content warnings would be religious bigotry, sexual assault, drugging, alcohol, drug abuse, drug use, torture, violence, assault, death, murder, suicide, parental abandonment, domestic violence, adoption, racism, microaggressions, kidnapping, gun violence, gaslighting, and adultery. And I'm sure there are more that I forgot, but honestly, all of this happened. So it's like, it's really going over like historical events. And a lot of that was part of the culture that he had created in his churches, in his compound. And then the bingo squares would be, I would definitely do this for a book club pick with teens. I think that they would probably find it as interesting as I did. A 2025 release, a book you borrow if you end up grabbing it from the public library or your school library. Nonfiction, it does have romance in it, not the way that we normally think about romance, but obviously it's going to go into his marriage. He ends up like committing adultery a million billion times. So if you wanted to count it as romance, that you wouldn't be wrong. And then I put summer camp because he kind of describes a lot of his compounds as like a summer camp feel. So if you want to stretch that one, that would be okay to put that one there. And then the yearly challenge would be book club or set in the decade a family member was born, since it does just take place back in the 60s and 70s. But I know that you, Rachel, love to read Candace Fleming's books. So I like when I grabbed this one and started reading it for this challenge, I immediately was like texting Rachel. I was like, oh my God, you have to read this. It's insane. So I can't wait for you to read it when it comes out.
Yeah, this is what I'll definitely jump into for sure. My next pick is one that I'm sure everybody is aware that I would be picking. That's Murder by Cheesecake by Rachel Ekstrom Courage. This is basically a Golden Girls cozy mystery. In this particular edition, we are following Rose, who's hustling to set up a wedding for a fellow St. Olafian in Miami. And on the very first event, the welcome tuna tea time, a body is found in the freezer, face down in the cheesecake. Can the girls find the killer and complete all the requirements of a traditional St. Olaf wedding? This feels exactly like watching an episode, but it's got all the fun parts of a cozy mystery in it. I definitely expect this book to become a series. I'm sure they wanted to see how this one would fare, and I'm sure it's going to do really well, especially with the huge Golden Girls fan base. So if you like Golden Girls and you like cozies, this is absolutely for you. This is coming out on April 15th. It's going to work for 2025 release, cozy mystery, women from history, and a female author.
I finished it yesterday and I totally agree. I mean, like it just nails the character. So obviously you can tell this author is very familiar with Golden Girls, and I think it'll be a great series for cozy mystery fans too, because it was just adorable.
For sure. And a nice little escape. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for Murder by Cheesecake. And those are our recommendations for the week. If you have questions, suggestions, or comments, reach out on social media at Books and Bingos or email us at booksandbingos@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and join us again next week. We'll be recommending books with book or bingo in the title for our 50th episode. Happy reading!